Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and yours truly, the captain, and we have a special guest today, our good buddy Sean. How's it going, boys?
I'm doing good, man. I was just pumped up for the intro, man. Even the little, I was getting rumble. I was like, "Oh man, what's happening?"
Yeah, Skaggs, I was looking at that. You know, we should try and like Photoshop our faces in to like the speed, like people in the background. You know, of like some of the speech.
That's not a bad idea, maybe, or maybe the
you know,
two
like
guys.
the Martin Luther King speech, like while he's up there talking, and we're just in the background, like, hey.
Yeah, just be like in the scene, but like just being nonchalant, like you
know, yeah, looking the wrong direction. Yeah.
Maybe the two guys who are in Vietnam and they're being handed beers before they go out into war. Maybe
or like if we get like photoshopped onto like the steel beam of all the workers eating lunch.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, my grandpa's in there. He's got a cameo. I won't say where, but he is in the intro. But
more Easter eggs.
Yeah, there you go. But Sean, I'm excited to have you back on, man. We were on your show a couple times recently. It was a good time.
One was one that only we know about.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Damn it, that was such a good
legendary episode.
Yeah, that you guys wish, and I wish I could even just be really hyping it up and sell it to you, but I can't because it's that gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited to have you back on. We did kind of have you on a long time ago. We had the like I think it was like the January 6th party, like the first time, probably after year one. But it was like 100 people in there. We couldn't really all talk. So I'm excited to have you on like one-on-one on our show and kind of talk about some things. We will talk maybe a little bit later about the Moscow terrorist attack. Cap, I know you kind of referenced that last night, so I said we'd save it for today. And I actually got the video that you were referencing. But we'll kind of just shoot the shit here tonight. I wanted to really kind of get your take, Sean, on a couple things. When we were on your episode last time, I thought it was so interesting because you are an anarchist like myself, and we were just kind of having conversations about like government and the state and the way like we understand it better, the way that they try to sell it to people as like this religious thing and how they purport to be themselves. So I just found it interesting how you kind of on the same level as me with that. Before we get started, though, why don't you shout out your show and what it is you do, all that stuff?
Well, I'm Sean Chris. I host the Kill the Mockingbirds podcast. You can go to KillTheMockingbirds.com. That's pretty much everything, you know. Still updating everything. I've been like reworking and revamping, building something new. What I discuss on my show is news, paranormal, and conspiracies. But through an anarchist, like logical, critical thinking brain, like trust me, I piss off a lot of conspiracy theorists too, because I don't really jump into it. Like I understand there is conspiracies, but like sometimes they're just theories. You know what I'm saying? They're interesting to me and I want to talk about them, but it doesn't necessarily. I'm not sold, but I'm never 100% against anything except like, you know, these weirdos like Diddy and stuff like that. But like
the
diddler.
Man, and I missed the opportunity on that, man, because I made a episode last year called P. Diddler, and then I was going to do shirts, the Diddler, and have him as the Riddler, and like everybody's like, I don't know, man, and I'm like, see, man,
ahead of the curve. Make sure you're blasting that out. You were fucking right.
So, Sean, let me ask, what was the last paranormal podcast you had? Because we need to go on for one of those, Skaggs. I mean, I grew up in a haunted house.
The last one I did, it was with I don't know if you guys know who Chaz of the Dead is. He does a lot of like UFO research and he goes ghost hunting and stuff and like. But it was interesting because he's a really intelligent dude. So when he breaks down stuff, like he's like me and we're logical and I'm like, well, so is it real? And he's like, well, let me just tell you this: everybody that has ever encountered like a spirit or ghost is already like open to the idea. Or people that have seen aliens are open to the idea. So like I'm like, it's not that it's not possible, right? Like, but I mean, there is weird stuff that can't be explained too. Like you can go through 100 stories and we could pick out all this stuff, maybe like 89 of them, and then there's 11 of them, and you're like, I don't know, man. There's no answer to. But yeah, it paranormal and like a lot of like cryptid stuff, man. I like cryptids, man. I'm into Bigfoot and Dogman and all that. I think I think
I've never heard of Dogman. Bigfoot, I'm familiar with.
Oh man, he's big out here in Michigan too, man. There's Dogman, you know, Mothman. There's all kinds of different
Mothman I heard of.
And I think that it's all connected. That's why I talk about all of it. I think that there is some clues in every single thing that we're hold on, man. I gotta move my camera because I feel like
go for it.
I'm like looking over but
I was watching TV in the background, yeah.
You're all thanks, bro. No, but I think it's important to discuss it because people also need to expand on those ideas. Like, I mean, there's something to people seeing all these things, these phenomenons. It's either connected to, it could be paranormal, I mean, you know, interdimensional, it could be a physical being, it could be a government experiment, it could be as far as implanted memories. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how far it goes. And then you just go down that, and I try to connect with actual hard evidence I could find. Like, I did
interesting.
Have you guys heard of an arcade game called Polybius?
Sounds familiar.
No.
So it's a legendary game from the 1980s that like supposedly may have or may not have existed. It's an urban legend. It was in the Seattle area, which also has a lot of strange paranormal UFO activity, cryptid activity. And it was just some game that was at a arcade game that was giving kids seizures, allegedly, suicidal thoughts, going to just different things like headaches and damaging their brains and all this stuff. And there's this story that goes along with it that this Sinologian company supposedly that made this Polybius game, it was a experimental CIA or intelligent agency like form. Now, I think that story's been expanded more. There's like this dude Bobby who claims, which he really did get, like he vanished and then appeared like 60 miles from his house at like 13 years old. And he claimed he played that game, went home, and these men in black took him. And then he was in some like dungeon or whatever. And then some kid helped him get away. And he was in this forest 60 miles away from his house. So that's unexplainable. Now, is it because of the game? Is it because like this is some like entity thing? I don't know about that. But there is evidence that people experience stuff. And then it got me thinking more, instead of just focusing and honing in on like the story of the paranormal aspect. But I'm like, well, what is that capable? Are they capable of doing stuff like this? Have they not done this stuff? Of course they have. So then you think like, look into the CIA. They've made board games. They've made different design games for their own selves. I think there is something to it. I don't think it's necessarily as far as people think, but definitely they were collecting data and information on people and kids and trying to figure things out.
That's really fucking interesting.
Yeah.
I think sometimes
need to do one of those episodes.
Yeah, we focus on like we might hear actually later on, you know, like foreign policy CIA ops that might be in the service of some sort of foreign policy objective. But we don't really sometimes think about the random shit they might be just throwing out the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Well, there was that story of either like the FBI or the CIA has files on Bigfoot, that they had one in the 70s or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Or what, you know, was it? I don't know if this was an op, but like the guy who was giving LSD, I think, to the dolphins, and he was trying to like communicate with them. It's like, bro, they're trying just crazy random things to just see what happens. And maybe, you know, 99 out of 100 times it amounts to nothing, but they still are trying these things. I do like the way, Sean, that you think about these things. You're very much so like me. Where I think, Chris, you're more so like Garrett. We should do a four-person episode with Garrett. Garrett believes every fucking single conspiracy theory that exists. Everything's a conspiracy. I crashed my car yesterday morning. It's a conspiracy. Where I'm more like you. I'm like, yeah, there are a lot of conspiracies and things that happen, but it doesn't mean like every single thing is a conspiracy. That's just like the law of statistics. It's just not possible. So that would be interesting. I think we should do like an episode. We'll plan ahead. Like,
no, I love doing. I would love
all
to do
those
that,
types of things. That'd be really cool.
Because like I think that it needs that. I think the conspiratorial world needs stuff like that, right? Like, because if everybody's just agreeing and circle jerking, then what are we doing, man? Like, we're not creating new ideas. Like, I never shut them down unless I keep hearing the same repetitive. My only issue with any like mainstream to say conspiracy, what people talk about is usually like you're hearing the same talking points, and I'm like, okay, I heard that with the jab, I heard that with you know what I mean, climate change, I heard that with BLM, like they're all parroted like word for word. Well, this look, man, show me something that like tells me that you've been thinking on this on your own.
You've
And
been
like,
doing some work too.
yeah.
I find it to be a little lazy sometimes, right? Like a thing happens and then everyone kind of just repeats the same conspiracy theory talking point. And it's very lazy. It's like you didn't actually like look into anything. You didn't, you just, it is kind of an Operation Mockingbird almost in reverse. You know, even with this, this bridge collapse thing, we got sent a thing by Gary.
We got
today.
community guidelines, therefore the conspiracy is true.
Oh yeah, but no, I was saying about they were trying to say that the Mitch McConnell's wife's sister is on the board of the company that owns the ship, and we were saying that it was a good chance that she got whacked. But then I spent 90 seconds looking up that company that she was on the board of and the company that owns the ship. They're not related at all. So like it's just like it doesn't take much effort sometimes to actually like find some information, but you see something, especially like in the like the atmosphere that exists on social media now. Like if you say some crazy shit like that, you're gonna get a lot of engagements, like especially on TikTok. It's very easy, like the incentives are there to just be the first one to say the most wild shit with doing no work behind it whatsoever. So I'm skeptical of that. Like I'm always like, I'm not gonna just post something without having done any research whatsoever on it, regardless of whatever it's about, whether it's
100%
something critical of the regime or not, or the whatever. So yeah.
Anytime anyone tells me, they're like, "Oh, did you hear?" And I'm just like, "Where did you hear that? What's your source first? Like, where'd you hear that?" Okay, you heard on TikTok. Some guy said it, right? I'm not saying he's wrong, but who else has said that? Like, what other information? And like, you can't give me all the media's. Look, I get that, but there's still people leaking information, and actually, you can dig for stuff, right? Like, there's still this system, regardless of how corrupt it is, and they still choose to kind of run within the system. Like, that's why you can still sue people, right? You can sue the government. Now, it sucks and it takes a long time, and it's draining and meant for you to give up. But if you're determined, you're going to get it. People win these audit cases all the time. And I think that's how we have to approach stuff. But since you mentioned the ship thing, that's funny because, I seen right away, like people were showing the video and they were like, "Oh man, that looks like controlled demolition." I'm like, bro, that's a giant boat. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's going to just rip through anything. Like you're seeing it from a distance. So it looks small to your, your perception of it. You're like, "Oh, well, that's not that crazy. Like something must have happened." I think the real conspiracy to say would be that is what I think is happening throughout America, not just infrastructure, but with businesses. You see it all the time that they have like equipment and they're like putting band-aids and never fixing it because people are cheap. They're like, "Oh yeah, man, that'll be good." So, and then it turns out that the ship had plenty of problems that weren't fixed, that things are overlooked. This is what we're going to see more of because since fast money came and we're like, pushing like, "Hey, let's just push product out, just get the product, the product out." Everybody was used to making money. They don't care about the consequence. And a lot of these people with nepotism have taken over companies that have no idea of how to run a company. They're just like, "Hey, let's keep doing the same thing, hire a new person, fire, keep doing all that, but never fixing the actual problems." So we're going to see more of this, I think.
Yeah, even with the ship, I saw that it actually is not the first accident that ship's been in. It got into an accident in Antwerp in the port there in Europe. So like, I'm trying to like, vet everything. I'm like, oh yeah, like the ship, the crew, they must have like a poor record of safety and probably maintenance, or maybe the company, maybe not the crew, but it's not the first time it's happened. Now this was a major one, right? But I don't just jump to the most outrageous conclusion without doing any sort of research whatsoever. I just think that that's a bit lazy. Not a shot at anybody in particular or anything like that. But
shots fired. Yeah, we're looking at you, whoever's thinking that it is.
It's usually me. It's all right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But that's what makes the conversation interesting. Yeah.
But you know what though? Like all these conclusions that I've jumped to over the past 240 episodes that we've done, on about 230 of them I've been spot on.
Good track record. He's got a good batting average right there.
100 no's and a yes is still a yes.
Well, victory.
So Sean, like I was saying when we first started, let's go here. Like, what kind of anarchist would you call yourself to be? They say the black flag comes in many colors, right?
Anarchist light, anarchist heavy.
I would say like I'm a free market to the bone, like, but I don't even like to use the word capitalism because it has like, I understand it, but I'm not going to explain capitalism to people. It's just too hard. So I just go free market. It's simple. It's easy. I'm a free market guy. Limited government. I could understand a small, and I mean like just small government, man. I really think we could do without. Personally,
Minarchist situation.
yeah, but I think that a lot of people wouldn't be able to function that way, like because they're so used to governments for so long. But I just think if so, it has to be very, very limited, and limited to the point of where what I thought jail was, even like going to that low level of when I was growing up. I thought jail was filled with like murderers and rapists. Not saying they're not in there. Well, actually, a lot of them are out. And then people are in there for selling DVDs, selling cigarettes, selling drugs, like really petty crimes, you know, that they've committed because they can't get out of their situation. So I'm just like, limit the laws and the reach of the government as much as possible. I can concede having a government, but it has to have very, very little power, and it has to be for extreme things like where you could get locked up, but still it has to be through a jury of peers that, like, you know, and I mean, this is not probably anarchist, but since we're saying that, I think people, what's up with that thumb thing, man?
I don't know. Where'd that come from?
I don't know. It always does.
Oh, that might be somebody giving us a thumbs up, maybe.
CIA.
Something like that.
Okay,
we got you, pal.
They're letting you know.
There he is.
They got their finger on you. Yeah.
It's eventually just going to go.
Yeah.
And you're just going to get unalived.
They got to start really paying for jury duty, man. Like, so there's no incentive to doing jury duty because people, and they don't realize how important it is, because a lot of times, like, say someone my age or someone younger, right, in their 20s, and they may have committed a crime. The guy that's there, that's 60, 70 years old, cannot relate to that kid. So unfortunately, he's just going to take the side of the older DA and the older judge. And if they make a reasonable argument, then the kid loses, you know? So I think it's important for us to all try to be involved. And I think another thing is like I said, anarchism, I guess, like anarchist light, then I guess it would be, because I can accept the government, right? And I've been okay with police. I'm not a big fan of the police personally.
Well, can I ask you a question? Yeah. I'm sorry. You believe in limited government, and that's an idea that I genuinely like. What do you feel about local government, though? In this situation, are you talking about the Fed, local? Or, because Ron Swanson had one of the best lines. He's like, the federal government should be nothing but a guy who has access to the nuke button and another guy who does like foreign affairs. That's it. Like,
pretty much. And I think local government is important, but it has to be like back to like where you're serving. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like going into the military or something of that nature. Like, hey, I'm going to the government. I'm going to pay my dues, make sure everything's better, pass on and move on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it can't be like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I think people will vote me in, and then you just stay in forever.
I'm not far from that.
But local government is important, though, man. Like, I think that is something that is not stressed enough. And I think through the past 5 years almost, like that, people have woken up to that. If they've woken up to anything, it's the importance, not everyone, but a large amount of people, how important your mayor, your city council, your school board. A lot of people didn't know. We didn't think about it because it didn't really affect us. But those are the people that really affect you. Like I was talking to Skaggs before you got on, Cap, like, I try to get unemployed. The first time in my life at 40 years old, I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to just kind of try to coast for a little bit and, like, try to do the podcast thing, like try to make it work. I'm going to get unemployment. So, but I had got a severance package from my last job because they had closed down the plant and moved to another state. I applied right before I got my last check for my severance because I was like, okay, well, they said I have to apply within 30 days, but I'm going to get one more check for the severance because it broke it down. They didn't give me a lump sum. And then I put out all my information, all is on the computer. I got nothing. I looked the next day and it was like denied. And I was like, denied? No way, man. I got a letter that says, hey, they laid me off. Like, I'm like, no way.
File it again. Yeah. File it again and don't even say you already got your severance. You're done.
I call. Every time I call, it hangs up. It says, due to the amount of callers right now, we're unable. Every time, though, at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, the whole time. I'm going on the
my
chat.
previous job, I used to help an old lady who would come into my office. I'd help her like every week file her unemployment claim. And yeah, it was like 90 minutes every time of waiting on a phone and getting zero help on the other
Yeah,
side.
well, I couldn't even get a person on the phone. Like when I would call it, like it would just be like, sorry, the lines are busy. Call back at another time, and then hang up on you. So then I finally got him on a little chat thing, and the guy's like, "Hey, have you tried calling this number?" I was like, "Are you kidding right now, bro?" Like, yeah, I've been calling that number, and he's like, well, "Okay, we'll go to Michigan Works, like where I'm supposed to go anyways." But I'm like, I already went there, so I went to Michigan Works before this guy tells me, and I went to the lady and I was like, "Hey, I got denied." And she's like, "Oh man, this happens to everybody." And like I was like, "Yeah, I'm supposed to call here, blah blah blah." And then she's like, "The only thing you could do is contact your representative." I was like, "Are you
Okay.
kidding me?" So then I contact the representative, who is a Democrat, by the way. But I contact the office. The office gets back to me. I type out like what happened. Within an hour, they call me back. Like I couldn't get them on the phone for anything. They call me. They had my wrong social security number. Then so then I'm going and thinking I'm getting all this back pay, which I'm now up to $2,000, right? Then they like, so I'm getting close, and I'm like, man, I just need to get a job since this is not going through. So I just got a gig. I started working, but I'm like, oh, but I'm gonna get this back pay. Then they sent me a letter last week that said, oh, because you got this severance package and every dollar you made means that we'll give you less money, like less than 50. Like basically, they didn't give me nothing. And I was like, I went through this whole like 2-month ordeal for you to be like, yeah, nah, man. I'm like, man, see, that's where I have a problem with. I'm paying for something and I don't get quality service. And I was telling them that I was like, any other industry, I said, this was a private organization, I could hold you accountable. But since you're a government agency, you're like, well, it is what it is. And she was like, well, we're understaffed. I said, welcome to America. Everybody's understaffed.
Right.
Like,
I've been to the unemployment office before and stuff, and you get into the conversation. They're like, well, we're understaffed. Hire me, bro. Hire me. You won't be understaffed anymore. You know what I mean?
You're in the business of people looking
literally
for jobs.
all you do is deal with people who are unemployed, and you're understaffed. Fucking hire them.
That's a great fucking point. I never thought about that. There's no reason why the unemployment office should ever be.
Dude, I always question that, and you'd be unemployed and you speak to recruiters. Make me a recruiter. I could go do this too. Like
it should be the most competitive office. Like they should just be. You get like 2 weeks. If you don't perform here, you're out here because there's 1,000 other people looking for a job.
You know what I'm saying? Like you hey, and you don't get your unemployment, and you don't get to the check for the 2 weeks you worked.
Those are all great points, though, man. It's a funny, great example of how, like, as the government gets bigger, there's like less recourse for an individual to have. So, like, you're dealing with the state, which is a little bit smaller than the federal government. But I, almost burst out laughing when the person told you to call your representative. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm gonna call my representative, and they're gonna like turn on a dime and move legislation.
You're lucky
one individual.
What they did though, because the guy told me, because I talked to him on the phone. Well, I left the email and to the governor. The governor never got back to me. Gretchen Whitmore, if you're hearing this, yeah, you didn't do anything. Like the opposite. And I called too, and I left a long message.
She's busy faking getting.
I was like, this is ridiculous. I said, you're supposed to be represented. So the guy was cool, right? I talked to him, and he said, this is a common thing. This is very common that people. So I'm not the only one, and I'm like, and nobody's fixed it. See, yeah, he got me the phone call. That doesn't fix the problem. But the thing is, they pissed me off. I don't even care about the money anymore. This is my new found, like, I'm going after them. I'm going to change something because it's crazy. Like, I'm good, right? Like, and I don't have to worry about it money-wise, right? I'm good. I'm not going to be like, oh, I lost all my stuff. But what about someone that's not good in a good situation? What about a single mother? Like, they always say, oh, Democrats, we want to save all single mothers. But yeah, you ain't done nothing for unemployment. And then they have to go through all these loops. Like, even too, like, if they want to get on food stamps and like all that stuff, they'll be like, yeah, we can't give that to you until you have $0 in your bank. And we go back 30 days. And you're like, so it tells you that the government's like, we want you to be desperate. Then we will help you because you cannot bite the hand that feeds you, right? And then we can dictate where you go and what you do, and now bow down and I can't get off the system. And like, that's how I see it. And it just seems so blatant. That's why I'm so mad at like leftists that are like, we need universal healthcare, government fucking healthcare. And I'm like, oh, really?
Think of what type of a mess it would be. Think of what type of, look at how the unemployment office is ran. Think of how the universal healthcare office would be ran.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll be dead.
Humans respond to incentives, right? Like if you incentivize people to be, destitute, paycheck to paycheck, $0, low lives, then that's what they're going to do, right? Because that's what you're incentivizing them to do. And yeah, man, I mean, do I have to get into the healthcare thing? I mean, myself, that's what broke me as a Bernie bro and turned me into an anarcho-capitalist, right? Like the behavior during the pandemic. Forget about just like the disorganization of, there's like, which is the nature of government, but the fact that like, if you don't do what we want, we'll let you die, or we'll maybe even just kill you, or like if you don't take this experimental drug, you lose your universal healthcare. In theory, you would they would have
doomed men argument.
Yeah, they would have pulled your healthcare at the time had there been a universal healthcare program if you didn't do what they want. So then it's not actually universal. I mean, I'm still shocked at how that hasn't really like changed somebody like a Jimmy Dore's view on universal healthcare or something like that, because he gets it when it comes to everything that happened in the pandemic. So it's like, dude, you just
but he's slow though, because even the pandemic stuff, he was a little. I mean, I love Jimmy Dore though, like,
me too. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I think like to go back, kind of like what you're saying, like what would you describe yourself as? And I would say an anarchist, a free market guy, but I really am open to all because I'm really want to learn from everybody, because I'm like, okay, this is my thoughts, but I know that I don't live in a place just by myself. Am I going to go into the woods and live by myself? No, I'm not.
Be nice.
Yeah, but then, I like talk. Man, I'm too much of a talker, man. I couldn't handle it, man. I'd be like, oh man, I'd be talking to the trees and stuff. Unless I find Bigfoot and then we just hit it off.
Vibing.
Voluntarist is a good word, I think.
I like those as well.
It's not threatening either. Like it sounds nice. Unfortunately, people are dumb, and like when you tell them words that sound mean, like anarcho-capitalist, like, oh my god, you're a psychopath.
You say anarchist, and people's eyes roll back in their head.
I think voluntarist.
It's really. I kind of feel like you're really just looking for peace and efficiency. You know what I mean? Because you're cool if there's a government, as long as like it's peaceful and efficient, and we the people have the power. You know what I mean? Like you're just looking for like this peaceful medium of where the government no longer has power, is limited to an extent that they can't overthrow us. And like you're saying, some people need daddy government. They just don't know how to live without it. And it's kind of like just a peaceful medium.
Yeah. Or like, I don't think that like a utopia is possible, even though I would consider myself an anarcho-capitalist. If people would say like Ancapistan, we're gonna get there one day,
right?
And it's no,
you know why
you're never gonna get like every human to like agree with your ideology.
Exactly. I always say it's the class clown thing. Like if no one's the class clown, someone will step up to be the class clown. So if we ended racism, there would just be one asshole who would be like, I'm racist, just to do it. And if we found this utopia, there would just be one person to be like, nope, it's not utopia. I don't like it. I don't like, you know what I mean?
But if we could train our mindset of just to be like, hey man, do you?
Yeah,
I don't care. Like now you're gonna alienate yourselves from all the social circles. That's on you, right? Like if we just go, man, this guy's an idiot. He always says stupid, like he's gonna ruin the day. Then we just X him out of our groups and be like, hey, or we go, yeah, he could be an idiot, but he's kind of funny sometimes. Then we accept him. Like that's the thing is like, it's everybody nowadays, in my opinion, especially see a lot on social media, is it's like, you have to think what I think. And I'm like, man, that's a boring world, man. Like, you know what I mean? I like that we differ in opinions. Like, I like when Cap's like, hey, what did you say about Trump, man? Like, man, you could see my DMs, man. He was killing me, man. Like,
I like that too. I like how humans differ in culture also. Yes. Like, there's this movement nowadays that likes to shit on other cultures. Like, I've seen on Twitter recently, like people shitting on Ethiopian food. I don't know. I've had
Ethiopian country.
No, like I've had Ethiopian food. I thought it was pretty fucking good.
I don't know if I ever had it.
But I do think there's a role though for like having standards and shaming people. This is I've come to learn it just because I'm a libertarian and
we need bullying back.
You know what I mean?
We need bullying back. Yes.
Depends on the thing. I think there needs to be a clear line between that culture does this, makes this really cool food, and they're different, and that's awesome, and they speak this different way, and there's different. But then there could be some other thing they do, like marrying young children, right? And we could be like, no, I'm not gonna, not that I'm gonna like aggress against them because of that, unless like the kid is right in front of me or some shit like that. But like that doesn't mean like we're not allowed to have opinions on things and judge people. Like there's a role for that in human interaction, culture, society as well.
Well, like Sean just said, like we have to be okay with the idea of you do you. You want to have blue hair. You want to identify as a woman. You want to do A, B, and C. Cool. As long as you're not hurting no one or murdering no one or robbing me, do A, B, and C all day. But don't you dare turn around and be like, you're a piece of shit for telling me I'm not doing A, B, and C. I always said this about the left. They simply cannot leave well enough alone. They cannot. They think they're being inclusive, but it's not even close because they just can't leave you alone. The idea of moving into the woods and getting away from society is a right-wing white supremacist idea. Why?
And really, it's Ted Kaczynski, man. If you think about it, like his manifesto, and he's as far from the right as you could get. You know what I mean? But I would argue that conservatives are just the same.
Oh, they're just as big as a problem. Yes.
Because
they are the problem themselves.
For your values. And it's like, look, bro, I'm not saying people should go and indulge in porn. Like if it's bad, if things are bad for you, you shouldn't do it. But I'm not your keeper. Right. If you ask me, I'm going to be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. Or, hey, you should go this way. But I'm not in the business of forcing people what to do. I'm going to give you the right structure and to go on what you said, Cap. I don't think bullying should come back. I think we need to hold people accountable. I think there's a difference, right? Bullying sometimes could just bullheadedly get ideas across that are not good, right? Like because people just follow the trend. But if we hope there's nothing wrong with us holding people accountable, I think that's one thing that all three of us could agree on constantly is that politicians, teachers, cops, lawyers, so on and so forth.
Hollywood, music, and nobody.
Yeah. They all need to be held accountable. Even the kid, the kid in the class that did something stupid, hold them accountable. Don't allow him to you're and that may be in that instance calling a name or getting punched or like something like that. That happens. That's life. Get over it. Like that's the kind of stuff like that. People, they call that bullying. Not to me. Like bullying to me is something relentlessly really trying to like kill the psyche of somebody. And like what you do is you teach your kid to hit that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you end the cycle. That you don't just be like, hey, keep running. Like, no, punch him in the face.
Turn back and fuck him up.
And even if he fucks you up, like, get back up next time and hit him. Like, that part is important, but I don't necessarily, I don't want words are important. It's not that it's just that why I try to take some of the words because then they use it against us, right? Oh, they want bullying back. No, we want to hold people accountable. There's a difference. Now, sometimes you could call that bullying because the perception of what they see it is, and that's not what I see it as. I see it holding kids accountable, holding people accountable. You can't just do whatever you want. Like before I got on here, I was watching. I watch a lot of like cop audits and constitutional right audits.
Play pages too, yeah.
I love those things. Right, the one is I think it's the Long Island audit. The dude's calm. He's telling them that his rights. And it's just sad because we always hear on the right how like, no, man, that's just a few bad apples. I not just the right, but anybody that backs law enforcement, and which to me is the state. The law enforcement is state. Any police, sheriff, that's the state. So I want them to have limited powers when I'm talking about, not saying they can't arrest people at all, but they don't even know what these laws are or the Constitution. Like they go into post office and he's like, you can't film here. No, I can film here. No, this is private property. You're like, no. It's not private property. It's a federal building. And that they explain it all to them and they still don't care. There's a bunch of cops, like if you film them, they get aggressive. One thing that I've never heard any of them say, which I always wonder, is like when they're like, you can't film here. They say, what about the security cameras? They're filming. So
they don't want you to think about that.
Why can they film, but I can't film? So like even patriots will be like, yeah, you shouldn't film. I'm on, I don't want to be on your camera. Did you want to be on these cameras? You know what I mean? So you can't be accepting of one and then mad at the other. And then you see comments of people like, these guys need to get a job. I'm like, these guys are just like, cops are just doing their job. Leave them alone. And I'm like, bro, look, they're not following the Constitution that you claim that you believe in the Constitution.
Right.
So what is it then? Then let's just rip it up.
Those people are missing the point. Like the point, I follow one of these pages, and they are interesting. Like just to watch the kind of like that psychological experiment almost play out and see how like police and people who work there and the guy who maintains his school who's doing it. Yeah, like you're definitely missing the point if you're just saying like well the cops, they're just trying to do their job and whatever. Yeah, like well, first of all, you're like coming to this page. This page clearly states what it is. Right, it's an audit page, so like you already know what it is when you get there. Then you're watching the video. It's not about like I understand the fact that like a cop has no idea in the moment what this is. He's probably thinking it's like a terrorist or someone who's gonna like assault them or whatever. But that's beside the point. The point is that it's like this psychological experiment to see if the state, which holds itself or purports to hold itself to these certain standards. That's what it's telling you all the time. That's what it's telling you. It has to hold you to. It doesn't actually follow it themselves. Now, that might not be on the individual cop or whatever, but it should be, right? Like the cops should be like lawyers. They really should. Or we shouldn't expect them. We shouldn't be putting them in the role to do so. So I do think that those are really valuable. And they're really just fucking interesting to see like how far someone, like how see the patience somebody might have with someone who's just like literally standing in a place
that can't de-escalate, right? There's a lot of cops that lack the ability to de-escalate situations, and in fact, if that guy wasn't calm, it'd be and the guy was in an unstable state, they would definitely make it more aggressive, right? And they come at this aggressive approach as an authoritarian figure. They have this idea that they are what they say goes. You do as I say. And then and then everybody's like, yeah,
it's the corruption of power.
Exactly. And I get that, but because the state and then like, because of the people and what we were, the media paints it like they paint these two sides. And I know that we saw a lot of like defund the police and stuff like that. And I think that was intentional because then you get crime ridden areas. And what happens? Because you can't force people to do what you want them to do, but you can make the situation so difficult that they go, please, 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 government, save me. Please, please. Look, the criminals are so bad. We need someone to come and rescue. Hey, we're going to have to put more laws.
Right.
That's going to be bad. No,
well, we had a whole episode on, I'll never remember his name, but it was, some black kid got shot. Remember, Skaggs, the episode where the incident where the female officer thought she had the taser,
right, and went for a gun instead,
and shot him and killed him.
Yep. I know.
And the whole reason was because that kid was being pursued by the police because they said he had a gun on him, and so it's illegal to be carrying a gun. But if you didn't make all these strict gun control laws, they wouldn't have approached him like a psychopath. He wouldn't have taken off running. The incident would have escalated, and she wouldn't have made the mistake of, instead of pulling out her taser, pulled out her pistol.
Yeah, I think those audit videos actually can almost be a free market way of holding the system accountable and even improving the system. Like as those audit videos become more popular and become more well-known, cops are going to find out about the audit videos, right? And they're like, oh man, and these things happen. And like, I better be aware that these things can happen. And what should I be aware of? The things that the guys might try and do or ask me. It'll spur people on to have some critical thought, perhaps. So like, I don't know. A lot of people in the comments
outlawed.
Or maybe right, yeah, maybe they will change the laws, but it's what I'm trying to say, like it that video itself can actually help make the situation better inadvertently.
The way to change it really though is, and this is why I think they are helpful, is because the most important court is the court of public opinion.
Yes,
so
of course.
Right now the public opinion is of like, hey, cops have a dangerous job. And I'm not saying there's nothing dangerous about being a cop, but a cop should not be. Cops have said, and I've heard this growing up my whole life, you don't know, they could have a gun. So he's already expecting, before I walk up to any vehicle, whether it's for a broken tail light, a speeding ticket, he's automatically going up to this car. I could possibly die tonight. That is not a way to live.
It's wild you say that, because this kid I grew up with, a childhood friend of mine, we grew up in an area where there was a lot of street racing, and boy, I mean, we were part of Fast and Furious before Fast and Furious even came out. And he had all these different little race cars, and everything. You know, he always had him tinted and hooked up and all this stuff. And then he became a cop, and I mean, 180 stormtrooper. Like, he's like, yeah, you know, I'm glad they made the because we were talking about it a few years ago. Como made tints illegal, and if you have tints on your car can't pass inspection. And I was like, and we were talking, I was like, that is such a bullshit law, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, as a cop, you know, I need to be able to see into the vehicle and make sure they don't have a gun, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, bro, just 2 years ago, you were rolling around with fives on an Audi.
Someone like that sounds like they're seeking like an in-group that they probably haven't had an in-group, right? And then once you get into, you know, an organization, the brotherhood, the police department, you're now in the in-group of in-groups, right? And then you just, you know, like you change your whole personality, and it gets molded to that thing because you were so lacking in having an in-group to begin with. Now you're really deeply like sinking your claws into it, and almost, you know, I don't think it's even like a conscious thought. That's just
man. Because I was like, bro, I've known you since you were 9. Like, this ain't you. This isn't you. This has never been you.
Interesting.
It's where like it's groupthink, right? You want to be part of the group. Like, have you ever seen those experiments where like they have like 3 actors in a waiting room at a hospital, like a doctor's office, and somebody new comes in that has no idea who these actors are. The actors get up every time there's a beep. Everybody stands up.
Yeah.
And then the person's like, there's just not, most people are like that. Even like I started a new job, man, and I'm a shaker, man. Like, I'm a person that's like, hey, man, I think this I'm an idea guy too, and I'm like gonna keep pushing my ideas. But like,
oh boy, they must hate you.
Oh yeah, already, man. I haven't been there that long. That's every place is like that. They're like, I'm the guy that's like always asking questions and like, why are we doing that? That's dumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
you're an old soul. You don't see it. You don't see it for what it is. You see it for what it can be, or you see like did you hate school growing up? Not learning, but did you hate school? Right? Like, why do I have to show up to this building? Why do I got to listen to this bitch drone on? And then you give me a sheet of paper, and if I don't do what you want me to do, I don't pass. What am I passing? What am I failing? You know what I mean? Like, granted, school and education and learning is super important. You can't just be a dumb piece of shit. But like, the organization of school itself is like, why?
Well, you hate the way that our schooling is modeled after the Prussian style of, you know,
and it didn't benefit me. Sitting there becoming a worker never benefited me. If I went to school in the 50s and I had metalwork class and shop class and home ec and all this, I would have been a straight A student my entire life.
You guys ever see the movie Ants?
Like the
long time ago.
The animation,
the cartoon, from Disney.
It's not a cartoon. It's like it might be Disney. It's I think it's like a DreamWorks,
Pixar
movie.
Or whatever.
Pixar, DreamWorks one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, and damn it, those bug movies are so deep. They're for kids, right? But they are. A Bug's Life is also very deep. But the Ants movie shows how like every ant is essentially being indoctrinated from a birth, and that like their whole life is in service of, you know, the entire, you know, what is it called, the colony, right? And like their lives are meaningless, and they're literally trained that from birth, like to go and sacrifice themselves in war against the other bigger bugs that they're trying to move their colony to, and all this stuff. Now kids watching this like, wow, this is awesome. There's ants fighting. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, wow, this is fucking deep. And it's like a representation of the way, it's a representation of like the schooling system and how like people are told like everything you should do should be in service of the state or whatever. And most people that kind of, you know, they don't notice that part of it.
You know, so looping this back in, you know, a big problem that we have is the corruption of power. Nobody's held accountable. A lot of stuff that I see on my timelines is about toxic workplaces and toxic managers and stuff. Anybody, so just like the police who have no humanity, who will escalate a situation, who go in there already, you're the criminal, you're going to do as I say, or I'm going to make you submit to doing what I say. It's just, we're in this weird time frame, and I guess it's been like this since the first caveman to have power over the tribe, you know, but this power just corrupts people, and power comes in so many different ways. Like, yeah, you could be the leader of your tribe or the president of the United States, but when you go to work and you're the boss there and you got 6 people underneath you, now you're God. You know what I mean? Like, and it.
What do you do with that? Is what makes a person. Sure.
I think it's part of the problem. I think more of the problem is that people became miserable because they were sold a dream, right? If I go to college, I'm gonna get to do whatever I want just because I got a degree, go into the field that I love, and I'm gonna make tons of money. It's gonna be great. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be lovely. And I think what happened was people did not fulfill their dreams. They didn't understand that you have to go on your own. These entrepreneurs that didn't go to school were able to do it because they just hyper focused on these ideas and what they had to do instead of like just being their head in a book. They didn't realize, hey, I have to get this degree, plus I have to work after it to get where I want to go. So there's a bunch of disappointed people that went to pointless degrees, and they're middle management, or they're cops, or they're teachers, or they're nurses. They're all these. That's pretty much
government jobs.
Yeah, where they're miserable people. They've lost out on their dreams. It fizzled out somehow, and they didn't get to go there. And they're like, well, this pays decent. This has
they're also jaded, right? I see people like this who are now so jaded, like, you know, they want to be their own boss or whatever. It takes so much work, but I'm just saying, like, you've been jaded and indoctrinated your entire life, like George Carlin said. Like, you're trained to be smart enough to operate the machines, but dumb enough to not question why you're doing so. Right. And then after you've gone through that your whole life, like we were talking about before, you don't like to say capitalist, right? Well, why not? Because people are now trained capitalism bad, hard work, entrepreneurship, and free markets not good. So like there's a negative connotation with the word capitalist. So I get it. That's actually smart to be like free market.
Just to switch it up, because you're exactly right. Because if I use that word that's just now a buzzword, that like they like to say in NBC and all that, a dog whistle, like
right.
A leftist dog whistle. They said capitalism, and they all just jumped up. And they're like,
well, Skaggs, what you got better memory than me. Remember Maj Touré's speech on how to talk to people?
Yes, empathy. Provide liberty-based information, and damn it, I forgot the third point. You know, like based around like a 3-point system, and how to like talk to somebody like that. Like, you know, and he was talking about how you know, people will be like, you know, facts don't care about your feelings. He's like, yeah, but that's kind of a stupid way to go about things. Like, people are humans; they have feelings, and if you like want to get your point across and change someone's mind,
you
have to play the game, and you have to kind of care about their feelings. So like, if you just come at them like, "Fuck you," who gives a fuck about your feelings? Like, it's not going to work then. You have to like be empathetic and then provide some liberty-based information. Maj Touré was saying, damn it, I forgot the other part, but it was really incycleful, I'd say. Watch that on our YouTube channel if anybody's interested. I
right now, this is an ad break. No, but if you see that happening with people that they kind of like push down, like you're saying, like Maj, like I like his message a lot, like, and I like him because he kind of reminds me a bit of myself. Like, we're all different, but you know, like you Cap, even to an extent, like, yeah, we might not agree on some political issues, but everything else we pretty much, if you took out the whole like voting, we'd be like, yeah, like we pretty much the same shit. Like we want the same, we have the same goals, just different paths to get there sometimes. But what I like to tell people is, like, at work, for instance, I go in, I'm there helping everybody. I'm like, hey, this is not a team. I'm gonna make it a team atmosphere. I'm gonna change the culture myself, or they're gonna push me out. Either or, I don't care. I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of what's on the other side. I've been there. I don't care. Send me there, man. I'll get another one. Like, it's nothing to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I am there and I see the bigger picture, but everybody else is just their perception. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, they can only see right in front of them. You know, they don't see the perspective, the scope lens. That's like, oh, that's how, if I do this, like I tell people, don't say I work for this company. I work at this company. Don't work hard for this company. You work hard for yourself, for your own self-worth. They may not value you as you are. You know what I mean? You might be a $20 an hour guy getting $9 right now, but don't let them shatter your attitude and make you think you're a $9 guy. You keep making, hey, I'm a $20 guy, and you keep busting your ass. They may not give it to you. The next guy will. There's some, that's how the free market works. But since people are just going to take this $9 hour job or 12, whatever's, bad money to them. That's why they still exist.
Yeah. Well, look, look at the people who you're talking about. We've all worked at different places, and there's always been the one person who shows up early, stays late, logs on the weekend, doesn't ever really take any days off, doesn't talk about any friends, doesn't talk about any family, doesn't talk about life. You've been molded into a slave that has not freedom, but I guess like a reprieve for 6 hours a night from the slavery. And they're literally just a cog in the machine with no other purpose in life.
That depends on the cog for what, though. Like if they're working for like if they're working for McDonald's and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, if you're, like when I used to work for the media industry, I mean, it's just Excel spreadsheets and meetings and invoice reports and stuff like this and sending emails back and forth. You're not really it's not like you're an engineer building a new bridge. You know what I mean? Like you're not a scientist breaking through with some new medication. You're just cranking out fucking emails.
It's where you're saying is like, and if you do find some initiatives, right, things that you can change it, a lot of this middle management people don't even want to give you the opportunity to change it
because you'll take away their power.
You take away their power, and then they want you to be that crushless. So like, I just come here, I get a check. I don't want to go to another place. And I'm like, no, man, like now I tell the younger guys and I'll be like, bro, man, you could be hustling all kinds of stuff, bro. Find your exit strategy. You know what I mean? Find your way to get out of here. There's all kinds of stuff. Like I've been telling the guys at work, I'm like, look, bro, you could go to sonar.ai. You can make instrumentals on there. Go get those instrumentals. You can clean them up if you want to. Say you don't. You just they makes your whole beat for you. Go to beatstars.com, set up an account, sell beats for $15, and then start putting in Google ads, $50, $100 a month, so you can have Google ads. So people go there. I don't have enough time. Well, then you don't want to get out of here.
Right.
There is option. That's just one.
I have to hit you up after the show.
Having to work hard is, it doesn't matter what your job is. Now you might just be scrubbing toilets because that's what's available to you, and you got to make some money to survive. And that sucks. And the company you're scrubbing toilets for, it might, they might be a shitty company and all this stuff. But like, regardless of whatever, like if we've just reverted back to the hunter gatherers cap, like we talk about all the time, like every fucking day we're gonna be like working really hard to try and survive, to acquire enough berries or deer meat and firewood and all these things. Like that is how humans survive. We're now just lucky that we're in this like more advanced civilization
we get to
where
go to the
there's
grocery
so much
store.
wealth that people are born into. Like there should be a little appreciation. There's so much wealth now that some people can just be like, we could just collect unemployment for a little bit of time while we're in between jobs, or other. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's a little bit of aspect, but people still need to work hard. I think that's been lost with a lot of the government programs, which disincentivize people from like wanting to be an entrepreneur and to work hard. And like,
well, then I mean, even
look
at the schooling system. You can't put down the kid has a grade under 50. No one gets out of class without a C. You go, you play a sport, but you still get a trophy for being in last place.
We have to hire people based on a quota of what they look like instead of how good they are at the thing. Now the planes are fucking falling out of the sky every other week, right? You know what I mean? Like that shit's going to show up eventually.
Diversity hires, right? I think also part of the problem is that companies are cheap. Like we were talking about, companies are very, very cheap. But not only that, let's not just shit on the companies. I want to give them a little, because also the workers, a lot of times people have this expectation. Well, I've been here for 5 years. I should get a raise. What have you done?
Right. What have you done?
You have to be useful. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, learn everything. They need your help. They need people on hand. So anytime you could go and learn something new, who cares if you don't get it here? Now you have the knowledge and you can go somewhere else. You're not helping. There's so many ways you can help yourself, whether it's being an entrepreneur and finding little like gigs online or going door to door and mowing lawns, man. Like there's so many things. So people also they look to the government. They're like, whoa, this is unfair. Like government regulate this too.
Right. Government raise my wages, make minimum wage higher. Right. I agree with you 100%. I'm always encouraging people at work, like make yourself a Swiss Army knife. I mean, that's going to make you more valuable. And then, if the place doesn't value you for becoming a Swiss Army knife, well, you're still a Swiss Army knife though. and someone out there will need a Swiss Army knife, and they'll value you, and you could take your skills into the free market and try and find someone who will compensate you accordingly.
And our free market doesn't work like that anymore, right? Like, so if you go somewhere, they don't value you because of this stupid minimum wage, which it's so hard to. This is the argument I've been trying. This is a hard argument because I understand people's perspective. Like, yeah, McDonald's makes billions of dollars. Why? Yeah, they can afford. But if we do not take those jobs, if you go, hey, I ain't working at McDonald's, they don't pay it, and we saw it happen. Mm-hmm. People stopped working in the pandemic at McDonald's and all these fast food places. What happened? They raised the hourly rate. That is how it's supposed to work, but people just can't understand it. Like, because when you tell people, they're like, no, so you think just companies could pay me $1? And you're like, no, don't work for them. Like, that's the point. Go be like, hey, let that place go out of business or be forced to adjust with the market. Like, when I'm going to interviews and stuff like that, I always mention the market to them. Like, some I think get mad because I'll be kind of like a little free market. I'm like, yeah, and I try not too much, but
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I know my market value. I'm like, the market value right now for shipping and receiving is blah, blah, blah. I was like, you could see it online, man. You could pull it up yourself. So I'm not an idiot. Like, I know what I should be paid. Like, it should be on this scale. Like, of course, you don't have to go all the way to the top, but there's a low, a median, and a high. Like, they go, oh, man, this guy knows, man. Like,
with that comes,
and that's why you don't get the job, because they can't screw you over.
Think about what you're saying too. Like, with that comes a sense of self-worth, like, and not being depressed and down in the dumps about everything. You're like already on the track. You got like half of what you need to get there to be a successful person, instead of relying on, oh, woe is me, and I need the government, people in high places in the palace to pass laws that raise my wages so that I could just meander through life as some slug or something like that. Is that a way to live? No.
Ban TikTok because I'm a bad parent and I don't know how to take the phone away from my kid. Like, what the hell? Like, take the damn phone away from him. Why is there not a parent lock on it anyway?
Right.
And why does he have a phone?
I don't need no Tim Pool. We don't need the government to ban TikTok.
No,
right. We need people to raise children correctly and enforce their culture and things like this. Like, damn it, I don't know how.
I would love to yell at Tim Pool for like 2 hours, man.
Yeah,
because I think he would. I don't think he would ever let me on, man. Because I think like I'll be like, he likes to control the conversations, if you notice, especially
I've noticed it lately a lot. Yeah,
he's gotten worse. But like Cap says, part of the problem is, I do agree with Cap, is that some people, like a good percentage of people, and I would say, and this is probably me being nice, is like a good 30 to 40% of people that get into positions of power cannot handle it, and it absorbs them.
That's a low number.
I know, I'm being generous. I know.
Yeah.
It is difficult.
I want to go out on a limb and say like 89%.
All right. We had one news story, but this is I enjoyed this conversation.
We're an hour in. Yeah. What do you want to do?
Do we want to get into our news story? Maybe keep it brief and touch on the Russia thing, Cap? I know you teased it.
We can. It's whatever you guys want to do. Do you have the images of the 4 of those guys?
I'm not playing those.
No. Just the images of them at trial, all lumped up and bandaged.
No, I don't have those. I actually have Putin's speech that he gave, which you referenced last night or whatever it was. I thought we could maybe play that. It's interesting. So for those who might not know what we're talking about, there was a terrorist attack in Moscow last week. A lot of people dead at the Crocus City Hall. ISIS has claimed responsibility,
which is so strange.
Yeah, always interesting, right? ISIS is back now. So Putin's here. This is translated. This is actually from Jackson Hinkle, but it's from Russia Today. So let's see what Putin has to say. This is what you were referring to yesterday, Cap.
That this crime was committed by radical Islamists, people who are combated around the world. We see that the United States are using their channels to whitewash their satellites and all of those who, according to their statements, have no part in this terrorist attack. And they're saying that it was the banned organization, ISIS, is fully responsible, but we know who carried out the attack. We are interested in knowing who ordered this attack. our investigative and law enforcement authorities need to have answers to many questions, such as, is it true that radical Islamist organizations are willing to make strikes against Russia and blaming it for the exacerbation of the conflict in the Middle East, and how the radical Islamists who are being positioned as true Muslims commit such heinous atrocities during the sacred month of Ramadan. These questions, along with many others, more specific professional questions involved in the investigation of this crime, must have their answers. One thing is clear: the terrible crime of March the 22nd.
Okay. Terrorist attack bad. That's the very interesting though. One of the things I learned about Putin the last month or so, whatever it's been, he is a smooth operator, and like if you put him up, compare him to Biden, I could tell he is a deep critical thinker. Now he's a former KGB agent,
or somebody on his team is a deep critical thinker.
I don't think you could fake it. I do think he is.
I think people forget, like, just to like not to like cut you out. Sorry about that, but he is a big proponent of the jab. They're like leading in biometrics identification, like the people paint. I'm not saying that
he was a good guy.
Yeah, that I just like to put out there because like sometimes people like to not you guys, but other people, like, we're not romanticizing him. Like
Jackson Hinkle, who's
the only reason why I would romanticize Vladimir Putin, as you say, is because he is just such a thorn in the left side that you know what I mean. Like it's fun. You know, like if I get to use Putin to shit on them, I'm going to use Putin. You know,
I think what you're saying, Sean, it becomes maybe a miss on certain people on the right, perhaps, that do romanticize him. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, it's in this guy's best interest if our society here fails. He's not like, you know, he's not here to
be our
sure
friend.
American society thrives.
Yeah.
He's
the epitome of what normies don't understand about politics and life. You know, normies are always worried about, well, what about this person's rights? Well, that's inhumane. That's unfair. Putin's not here to be your friend. Putin is here to run his country to the best of his ability, whether you like it or not, whether our government agrees with it or not. These are the decisions he made. It's business. It's business and geopolitics.
It's not pro-freedom, man. I mean, they had a 16-year-old kid got like 2-3 years in jail for like making a snow penis, man. Come on, bro.
They just gave Dershowitz, the journalist, 3 more months, I think, in prison. Where after Tucker asked to release him. So
nice.
Yeah, you know, I think I think a guy like Putin, like, we can, you know, like, you stay over there and do your thing, and we'll stay over here and do our thing, as long as we don't like cross over to your side, you don't cross over to our side. Could there be like a detente in that thing? I think yes. I think there could be, but don't get twisted. This guy, especially so far as how much we've been provoking them. This guy's not interested in whatever he might try and appeal himself to, you know, as a Christian. We're a Christian nation, and you guys are supposed to be a Christian nation and all stuff. Like, no, he would be fine with the entire collapse and, you know, America becoming a.
He's an authoritarian, you know, you know what I mean? Like, he's authoritarian, like, he rules, he's a tyrant, like same thing. But also our government is too. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, like, to me, they're on an even scale. But in this scenario, he's absolutely right. He's telling the truth, and we do get the truth sometimes because it benefits. If it benefits for you to say the truth, you're going to say it sometimes. And he's absolutely right. I think this is 100% a false flag by our CIA or some probably, like, you know, farmed out to somebody else. You know what I mean? I don't want to say it because we don't want to get everybody, like, the whole thing shuts down if you say certain things. But you know who I'm talking about. They probably farmed it out. And they even put a statement out earlier this month, like, "Hey, Americans, don't go to concerts." Like, hey, Russia.
I mean, the way I think of it, you know, like, who needs to benefit in the coming months? I'm not even going to say Biden. I'm going to say the Biden administration. War is great for an election, number one, and number two, if they could spark World War III before November, then they could suspend the election, and then they could stay in power. If push really comes to shove and they don't feel, I'm just speculating. I'm creating my own conspiracy theory here.
Sure.
Obviously, no facts about it, but just I'm looking at it from that point of view as well. Like, who's going to benefit if World War III starts? You know what I mean? Like,
humans respond to incentive, right?
Yeah.
And also take into account Alinsky's rules for radicals. How do you get the greater power to lose when you're not in a position to defeat it? You got to get it to kill itself. In this weird scenario, Russia's kind of the greater power, at least in the war in Ukraine. Like, they're winning, and they've proved that like they're not going anywhere. So how do you get Russia to make a mistake? Well, perhaps you
distract
do something so heinous and over the top that they overreact, right? And then they go in hard and do something that's crazy. And then the entire world is like, hey, that was too much. We only need to band together now to actually put boots on the ground and oppose you. Sound familiar? What happened in Gaza and Israel, right? Do something so over the top, it causes the other side to go over the top as well. And then, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Like, are the Palestinians in a better place now to actually have a state than they were 6 months ago? I think yes, actually, I really do. I think they've gotten back enough like support in the world that they're in a better place than they were.
The perception, that's what it matters more than people think.
But
like people need that. Like, they need to know that it's okay to like these other things, right? Like, even today at work, someone's like, "Man, you're over there." I said, "You're talking to everybody." I said, "Man, I'm politicking, man. Everything's politics." I said, "I'm shaking hands and kissing babies." You know what I'm saying? I'm making bridges. It doesn't matter. I don't look at this person I'm talking to like, oh, I'm going to trust them with my kids or my family. But I need them at this situation to try to figure something out so we can build a bridge. They want to take down all these people because it benefits them, like you said. And I think, in my perception, again, like, this is just how I see it. I don't have a bunch of evidence to back this up. I think they want World War III won't happen until Trump's in office. Because I think it's intentional, because people tend to forget how tight Trump is with Israel. Like, he's been constantly saying that. Like, he's not going to be like, yeah, man, Hamas is just a small group. He's going to go all in.
We just played a video of that late last night. Yeah.
Yep.
And he wants it. Like, not that he wants it. And again, I also, like, I go different levels with Trump, right? It could be he's in the occultism, we could go the occult route, or maybe he's just a useful idiot, or he's just part of the swamp. Or the fourth option is like new mob boss, right? Like, hey,
that's usually what I say. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those four things, but one of those is at play. It's obvious now, I think, more than ever, because you can see he's campaigning like a typical politician. The reason he won in 2016 was because he took an approach that nobody saw. That's why I'm surprised that Vivek, because he had a lot of people like goo and guying over him, which I understand. He's a great talker. He did something that he changed. He set the bar higher. He goes, hey, you're criticizing me. I'm going to run right into it. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I did do that. And this is why I did that. And that's something nobody else was doing. So, of course, it brings more people in. It rightfully so, because you're like, finally, some guy holding himself accountable. But there's a lot of backtrail that could be shady to me. But I would understand more if people voted for Vivek right now than Trump, even though I would not vote for him either. But I could see the appeal. I don't see the appeal for Trump anymore, except the like, yeah, let's stick it to the left hate. And it's like we're playing the same game.
Other siderism.
Yeah, and it's like, this is not a way. Like, look at how we put True Social out there, right? He put to what's it called?
The stock market. IPO'd it. Yeah.
Yep.
We were just talking about that cap. Yeah.
And who's gonna buy all those stocks?
His supporters.
Exactly, bro. He's just ringing everybody out, and like, it's just crazy. And like, let me get off Trump because I'm gonna be talking on Friday forever. So like, but the CIA, this is typical CIA 101, man. This is how we do it all around the world. If you go through old documentations, they've done this regime change time and time again. They want a regime change Putin so bad. Since Victoria Nuland in 2014, remember with the leak phone call, fuck the EU. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is something they've been poking at for a long time. And I think there's different factions. Like, yeah, maybe the left has a faction that wants this more. The right wants to take over a different part. But for some reason, the left is infatuated with this part. I think because maybe the European Union, but I'm not sure on all that. Or maybe the NATO aspect of it. Or maybe it's just like, king of the hill, who's positioning themselves to be the top country again, the big dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Cap, what do you think?
For what? Who did it, or
the whole thing? Whatever your thoughts on the whole.
Man, like Sean's saying, CIA 101. I really find it hard to believe that ISIS did this. Something they interviewed one of the guys, and they were like, "Well, we were promised $500,000." How did you imagine, for one fucking second, you were going to walk into the center of Moscow, Russia's capital, and murder 130 people and walk out and collect your money? How did you imagine this was going to play out? Right? You either got to be the dumbest gunman alive, or you were put up to this. So, I really feel it's a straight red flag. And I feel that this is to stroke the flames of World War III. I think this is to fast track us for World War III. I've been saying for months now that 2024 is going to be unheard of. We are going to see things we've never seen before, things that we never even imagined before. And we're only at the tip of the iceberg. And a red flag operation in Russia sounds like that would work, because when you do a red flag operation here in America, you got people like the three of us who are calling it out, and the conspiracy falls apart right away. Let's do a red flag on the other side of the planet, maybe start a war. It's just, it's suspicious, man. And I know it's hard to not fall into, to think critically and not believe everything's a conspiracy, but I mean,
there's evidence.
There's merit here, right? Forget about even evidence. There's a merit here. Now, I will say that Putin does say that it was radical Islamic extremists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's ISIS or not, I don't know.
But who created ISIS?
Yes, there's that, right? That the destabilization of Syria and the backing the different groups and whatnot ISIS was a product of that. Don't forget though that Russia was involved in Syria and they did fight ISIS there, so there could be an axe to grind there.
America trained ISIS to fight Russia,
but I'm not ruling it out that ISIS might have an axe to grind with Putin as well, because he did fight them in Syria.
But isn't it weird that ISIS was destroyed under Trump and now came back?
They just
We're talking about a different ISIS. This is ISIS with a K.
ISIS K, yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, literally. That was ISIS K was the one who claimed responsibility for the attack during the pullout in Afghanistan.
So ISIS light, ISIS light, extra ISIS.
What taxpayer dollars of mine are going to the guy that thinks of these damn names, man?
Come on. Do better.
That job, man.
I don't, Sean, you mentioned before whether this was by proxy or something like that. That's not even a fucking conspiracy. The official story here is that these guys were guns for hire, that they were recruited via Telegram, the messaging app, by some Islamic cleric or something like that, who then convinced them to carry out the attack and that he would have paid them, blah, 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 blah. Now to me in of itself, that sounds suspicious. Like, did you ever meet this cleric? Is this cleric actually a CIA operative on the other side of the screen who's presenting himself as a cleric and then recruits you to go and carry out a thing? Or is it even, is that laundered down by 2 or 3 people? Is there somebody behind the cleric and then somebody behind him and then that person is the CIA agent? I don't think that's too far-fetched here, given the state of the
FBI is on Facebook constantly trying to recruit young, dumb people to do something.
It's also not the first time Putin has accused the U.S. of something like that. If you remember in his interview with Tucker, he referenced the separatists in the Caucasus Mountains, how he asked the FSB he brought it up to President Bush.
Yeah, and they did nothing.
Like, why are you backing this policy of these separatist terrorists on our, like in our region? And Bush said he didn't know anything about it. And then he waited for a response for a couple months, didn't get any response. He asked the FSB to send a letter to the CIA. And he claims he's like, he told Tucker, he's like, you go down in the records room, we still have the response from the CIA here where they said, like, this is the best course of action. We think that just that should be done, and this is the course of action that we're going to take. That was what he's saying. The CIA told the FSB, which is like their version of the CIA. So is that true or not? I know. Keep it a grain of sand, right? It still is Putin, but it's not far-fetched. This is literally coming out of the president of Russia's
that's
mouth.
The best way to say it. Like, like you said, that it has merit. It's not you could connect it very easily. It's not like one of these things, like a theory. There is theories, but there's also degrees of the theories. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you don't have all the evidence right there, but this has time and time again. And just like 9/11. That's why 9/11 is one of my biggest ones. It's something that just because I was alive for it, I was able to critically think through the whole thing. I never, maybe a week or so. I think everybody for a week or so, kind of like with the whole pandemic stuff. That first week you're like, man, it's kind of strange, and then as evidence came out and as you were able to dig into it, you could see that there's something wrong. Now, is it exactly what I think it is? I don't know, but I know that just like 9/11, there was able danger, we're going to have this, flight simulation, combat simulation the same day that scrambling jets right when these things are going to hit the building, even though we know FBI and CIA knew about that. And then for them to say a couple weeks ago, just don't go to any, especially concerts in Russia. It's strange that they specifically pointed that out.
Right.
I think that also you could point the finger that CIA pretty much, in my opinion, is kind of running Ukraine. So
of course it is.
That came out recently, right? That story.
They got 26 bases or something.
That's what I'm saying. So they made the call straight from Ukraine, and I think that the Ukrainian attachment is from that. And then they're also saying that some of these people might have been from, what is it called, Dagestan or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's kind of
Tajikistan.
Split Russia.
What's funny too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure I read this, Biden's first response to when this happened was Ukraine didn't do it. How about you cover your own ass? We're literally at the point where our own president is covering another nation's ass before they're covering our own.
That is wild.
Last point I'll make before we wrap it up, something I don't think anybody's thought of during this whole thing is how Navalny died a couple of weeks ago. Putin's opponent, who was in prison, and all this stuff, right?
I think we
died a couple weeks ago during a NATO conference, and Navalny's wife happened to be at the conference at the exact same time.
A defense conference at that.
Right. So we were talking before early in the podcast about humans respond to incentives. Well, what was the incentive there? Was the incentive for Vladimir Putin to murder his political opposition who's already in prison while NATO's having a defense conference? No, of course not. That doesn't make any sense, but that was the accusation. That led me to believe there could be the CIA might have reach into Russia, right?
Of course it does.
Maybe they have reach into the Russian prison system. Right now, I have no evidence.
Nowhere on this planet or the next several planets that the CIA can't reach.
Maybe they were push the button on Navalny. Now's a good time. We could send that death to our narrative.
There's not just a lot of times we say CIA because that's the easiest way to describe it, but it's there's all kinds of intelligence and spooks everywhere, man. There's spooks everywhere you look. Look how they make that word a racial slur now, man. Sometimes people hear me saying that and I'm like, bro, do you know what that means? That means it's an intelligence agent. They make you think it's something else because they don't want it to be. They're supposed to be hidden, and they have cells everywhere, man. They have somebody on the books, whether that doesn't mean they're actually CIA, but you know what I mean, some kind of front man or.
Oh, dude, just you make a private security firm, and the CIA privately contracts you out, and you hire outside sources. So now, the CIA is 3-4 times removed from this mission. And like Skag said, is this a CIA agent on the other side? Is there 2-3 people on the other side of the screen that lead? It's everywhere.
Humans
it's everywhere
respond to incentive structures. The CIA could have created an incentive structure that gets private, mercenary groups to want to do things that the CIA would want to grovel up to them to then get contracts and money. Perhaps maybe it's even of their own fucking volition, right? But then later they'll come and be when they come talk to their handler. They're hey, look, man, we did this for you guys. Give me something out of it. They might have created that incentive structure there behind the scenes. I think it's well beyond reason that the CIA definitely has its own black budget and makes its own money, even detached from the insane pork barrel spending that America has. So 100%. I think we should wrap it up there. Sean, why don't you shout out your show and all that stuff again before we get out of here?
Yeah, go check out Kill the Mockingbirds on all podcasts where you can find any podcast, Apple, of course, Spotify. But I also like to promote the Podcasting 2.0, something that Adam Curry from the No Agenda podcast had started up. That way they can never kill us, man. The Podfather keeps it going, and we're not gonna be able to die. You can find us on any app. I always push If you can, try to get away from Apple and Spotify. Find another app. Go in your app store. Go to podcast2.0.com. Find an app there. Then go to Kill the Mockingbirds, or just go to killthemockingbirds.com. Go straight to the sources. Let's try to limit this centralization of media and, just have a good time, man. That's what we try to do around here. Educate if possible and just unite, man. Connection, getting people to understand that we're all on the same team.
Educate and medicate. Thank you so much, Sean. This was a great episode. Everybody go check them out at killthemockingbird.com. Doom Nation, this has been another installment of the Two Doom Men podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Skags, any final words?
Adios.
Peace out, everybody.